Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Graw. Everyone here works at a barn in some way, and most of you are riding instructors that many children have come through your doors. So to you, the issue of racism in the barn is ever present, and you have a say in how you react to this important issue in your own barn. Today, my main goal is to share with all of you how you can be your own agents of change in your own barn and in others. By the end of my presentation, I would like everyone here to be able to identify major blockers for people of color and how to work on breaking these blockers down in both physical and verbal terms. I would also like everyone here to be able to identify their own biases and reflect on them. Before we proceed, however, let's discuss. What is racism? In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, racism is described as prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. This is the thought process that first comes to most minds when describing racism. However, the American Psychological Association also defines racism as including bias, known as a predisposition for or against something. They describe there is typically an effect of restricting opportunities for other groups. The APA also includes the acceptance of negative stereotypes as a part of racism. In this particular case, we are talking about racism of any person of color, but I will use African Americans as an example as they are one of the most discriminated groups of people in horseback riding. Before we proceed, keep in mind that some of you may be thinking that you have no conscious bias against people of color, but that does not mean that there is not an implicit bias, some kind of reaction or thought process that has been ingrained into you from a young age. I would strongly encourage each of you to take the implicit bias quiz at the end of this presentation, and I invite you to take a quick picture of this link before I move on. Now, racism is an issue throughout the country, but it has an incredibly strong impact in horseback riding compared to many other sports. The U.S. Equestrian Organization, despite beginning a DEI action plan in 2020, has yet to record real data regarding racism in horseback riding. However, British equestrians surveyed 634 respondents of Black, White, Asian, and other descents. Their research, according to BBC Sport, said that 76% of respondents said that people like them are underrepresented in horseback riding. 61% said that lack of finances stopped full benefit access of activities. 24% felt that racial discrimination negatively affected their ability to access and benefit from being an equestrian, and 33% of white respondents agreed that working in horses was a viable career option, with only 6, 10, and 16% of Black, Asian, or mixed race background agreeing. It's also important to note that within this data, 26% of the respondents were white, which means that the entirety of the other ethnic groups felt that they were underrepresented. Many of the respondents stated that bullying was commonplace, and a lot of it was racialized. Some also felt that horses were allocated based on the manager's preference, and that concerns from riders were pushed aside, played down, and ignored. If you look up racial diversity, you will find comments from many Black equestrians commenting on how they are typically the only person of color at a show, or they are underestimated at shows. And the amount is growing as Black equestrians feel more comfortable speaking out about the issue. The girl pictured is Rachel, a girl many of you know, and she shared her own insights of being a person of color in Little Britches and IBRA. She said that she felt ignored and not taken seriously until finding a friend in the ring who taught her more. As trainers, many of us should feel ashamed for not recognizing this young woman and making her feel seen, heard, and skilled. Luckily, more and more associations are recognizing this issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and more associations, barns, and trainers are working to improve their own DEI actions. And you could be next. In our barns, there's a lot of flexibility as well as strict rules because of the freedoms and dangers of horseback riding. However, many of us do not think to apply universal design to setups and systems. Universal design is often used in regular workplaces such as hospitals or restaurants. However, barns can be made more accessible both physically and socially through the application of universal design. There are 7 principles which we will go through quickly. We will discuss some of the major principles in regards to horseback riding and racism in the ring later on. The Center for Excellence in Universal Design has provided quick explanations of each principle. Principle 1 is equitable use. The principle asks if the design is useful and marketable to people with diverse abilities. Principle 2 is flexibility in use. This principle asks if the design accommodates a wide range of individual preferences and abilities. Principle 3 is simple and intuitive use, asking if a design is easy to understand regardless of a user's experience, knowledge, language skills, or current concentration level. Principle 4 is perceptible information, asking if the design communicates necessary information effectively to the user, regardless of ambient conditions or the user's sensory abilities. Principle 5 is tolerance for error, asking if a design minimizes hazards and the adverse consequences of accidental or unintended actions. Principle 6 is low physical effort, asking if the design can be used efficiently and comfortably and with a minimum of fatigue. And finally, Principle 7 is size and space for approach and use, asking if there is an appropriate size and space provided for approach, reach, manipulation, and use regardless of the user's body size, posture, or mobility. Many of these are easily accessible, but depend on the way an instructor teaches. For example, Principle 2 is mentioning individual preferences and abilities. There's adaptability in horseback riding for pacing, sizes, and different methods of use, but there's also a set standard for horseback riding that ensures safety and maintains the history of riding. Principle 3 asks if the design is easy to understand overall, and nearly every instructor does begin with the base information and works towards the harder skills over the course of time. Principle 6 is low physical effort. However, horseback riding in itself is putting forth physical strength, using repetitive actions, and includes a lot of motion. Principle 7 regards the size, no matter body size, posture, or mobility. There are many different ways to include smaller or heavier riders, like saddle and horse side, and there are aids for those with mobility issues. However, it's impossible to ride safely without some kind of postural ability, unless a very expensive piece of equipment is available. So it seems like horseback riding, in relative terms, follows along the principles of universal design very well, but it does depend on the instructor. It depends on your ability to make a barn fit for universal design. A lot of barns struggle with equitable use, perceptible information, and tolerance for error. The biggest issue is equitable use. As we have already mentioned, riding is segregated, and there are a lot of stigmatizations. Black riders are often not spoken to at shows, get weird glances and snide comments, and a lot of Black equestrians have stated that others expect them not to have enough money to actually be in the sport or to afford a good horse, good equipment, or a good trainer. The design is not appealing to all users because there is not good representation, and a lot of riders of different ethnicities have struggled with the limited options in terms of riding clothes. Those who wear a hijab or have a thicker hairstyle, such as twists, especially struggle in finding a helmet that fits them, which is dangerous for the rider. Another struggle is perceptible information. Horseback riding can be noisy, and while you can offer private lessons, they are often more expensive and are not often available. A lot of barns also struggle to accommodate learning disabilities and hearing or speech impairments. Many instructors also only have one way of describing how to do something, which makes it difficult when a child does not understand that specific description. Instructors can easily work to create a separate clause for lessons for children with disabilities regarding pricing of privates and accommodations for different disabilities or impairments. The third principle that horseback riding environments often struggle to support is tolerance for error. Horseback riding is dangerous, but many barns fail to provide warnings of hazards and errors, do not have good helmet and vest guidelines and rules, and push students to do new skills they may not be able to be prepared for. I myself have fallen into the trap of accidentally pushing a student too quickly, and they have moved backwards in growth. As instructors, we need to pay more attention to the hazards of horseback riding and how we protect our riders. In order to keep inclusive, equity, and diversity actions in place, it is important to have some actions and expectations in place. Firstly, we need to support all of our riders. Riders of color, riders with physical and learning disabilities, riders with different pronouns, and everyone in between. The idea at hand is horseback riding, which is a sport that brings so many different kinds of people together because of the shared love of a connection with a horse. Expect that every rider that comes through your door is the same as when you first began riding. Everything is new, scary, and also exhilarating, and like a medicine that cures all diseases. Each rider has something new to add to your program, so support them in their journey. The next action is to listen and coach. A lot of racism and discrimination comes from peers who make comments about another's skin, hair, finances, abilities, and speed of learning. As an instructor, it's your responsibility to identify the comment and shut down the bullying. Whether it be by taking students aside and informing them why that kind of behavior is not allowed and how hurtful it can be, or whether it be by commenting that the rider being bullied has great skills and offering support. Oftentimes, a talk with a parent may be in order, but the support of an instructor, which the riders look up to, holds a lot of weight to a young child. The third action is understanding your own implicit bias. I personally hold my own implicit biases, but a wonderful instructor once taught me that it is not the first thought that you have that holds the greatest weight, but instead the second thought that you have where you hold a conscious thought. Using this principle, I have been fighting against my own implicit bias, and I recommend that many of you do the same. Within the community, there are quite a few advocates for riders of color and for those who may have difficulties accessing horseback riding due to finances. The Compton Cowboys was inherited by Randy Savvy, an upcoming musical artist that helped Beyoncé plan her rodeo-themed performance in 2022, and includes 7 cowboys and 1 cowgirl, who uses horses to get children off the streets. They teach these children how to take care of and ride horses, giving them a space away from the dangerous streets they may live on. Felicia Chandler is a Grand Prix level rider who experiences racism in her barn and it shows. She grew up with horses, but it is still questioned for her abilities, and many do not believe that she is a high-level rider when meeting her because of the color of her skin. She works to create an open space for riders of all colors and continues to show that anyone can achieve anything in the sport. Brianna Noble is a less prominent advocate, but was made well known for her brave show of commitment by walking her horse through downtown Oakland, California, in the Black Lives Matter parades. She owns Urban Cowgirl Ranch, which helps marginalized communities through agriculture. My honorable mention that may not fit into the idea of fixing racism in horseback riding is Amberly Snyder. She was a competitive cowgirl in many different speed events until a car accident in 2011. She worked hard to get back in the saddle after being paralyzed from the waist down, and continues to show even now. She's an advocate for para-equestrians around the world and shows that there are no physical boundaries to horseback riding when you think outside of the box. All of us here have likely felt ups and downs as we have learned how to ride. Many of us have had bad instructors, struggled with money, started late, gotten burnt out, and missed who knows how many holidays, family gatherings, and family events due to our horses. But at the end of the day, we stick with it because we love it. But imagine if you had to deal with other riders instead of having a support system. Not only are your parents, your finances, and the world against you, but your barn, show stewards, and everyone in the ring think that you do not belong there. It makes the action of riding become so nerve-wracking that the negative factors override the connection with your horse. If there was not a single person around you who believed that you should ride, would you even be able to learn how to show the way that you do? Likely not. As trainers, it's important to create an environment where everyone can grow under the love of horses and riding. If one person had not given me the chance to clean her stalls in return for lessons, I may have never been able to learn how to ride in the first place. When no one else believed in me, she saw potential, and my speed of learning caught my parents' attention. Much to their dismay, they knew from then that I was at least going to stick with it for a while, and they still doubted that I would continue to ride after high school and college. Because of the support of the horse community, I have connections, I know people, and I've trained my own horse from off the racetrack just 2 years after starting to learn how to ride. With the community, anyone can be anything, so be a part of someone's community and help them grow, no matter the color of their skin, their financial situation, or their motor control. With your help, they can do it. To learn more about diversity in the horse community, there are 3 success stories to surprise and delight. Firstly is the Compton Cowboys book written by Walter Thompson Hernandez. This story not only captures the creations and workings of the Compton Cowboy, but also connects it to the history of black cowboys in the West. The second is The Jockey and Her Horse, the aforementioned In the Course book co-authored by Cheryl White's brother, Raymond White Jr., about her journey. This book is the second in a series called Once Upon a Horse, all of which are good reads about discrimination and advocacy. The last is the movie co-produced by Amberly Snyder about her story called Walk, Ride, Rodeo. Available on Netflix, this movie also includes Amber Lee doing her own stunts in the scenes after the car accidents.